2 Samuel chapter 9, verse 7. I was with thee whithersoever thou wentst, and have cut off all thine enemies out of thy sight, and have made thee a great name, like unto the name of the great men that are in the earth. David went through some hard times, but God was with him. And sometimes when God has us go through some really hard times, there's a reason for that. Because gold does not get purified unless it goes through fire. And steel does not get strong unless it's beat. And sometimes God allows you to go through some things. But if He's the one who is putting you through it, or allowing you to go through it, and you turn to Him, He will make you stronger because of it. Anyway, so I have to finish this part of the recording, but we'll go into the reading with my wife or my son, whoever's going to do it. Real quick, the guest call-in number is 917-889-8827. That's 917-889-8827. Here we go. All right, I am almost to the grizz at the spur, so I got to put my rocks into this hole in the ground. Kim, are you on? I don't hear you.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yes. Good. I'm like trying to figure it out. I had the mic up still, but Lydia was unmuting me. All right. I was trying to follow along, but I don't know the last word that you said. I know we were on page 108.
Okay. But 108, the first paragraph is the 2 Samuel chapter 9. All right, chapter 7, verse 9. That's where we're
Chapter 7, verse 9. Okay.
Yep, and I'm using
That's where you said. So instead,
no idea how to mute it, so I'm going to mute it on the phone.
Yeah, and I could explain to you how to do it, but you might still push the wrong one. So the one on the left side, the one that's all the way forward on the left side, that one will mute and unmute you. The one above that will turn it from, it's like 3 different settings. One is so you can't hear anything else going on around you, and one is hear through, and one is whatever the other one is. So,
okay.
Yeah, you can just hear it and you can hear what it says. So
okay, I'll just try to mute myself, and I got to jump out and do my gates. So
perfect. Okay, let me go ahead. Oh, Arius has an owie on his finger. What happened to your finger? It's okay. You need a Band-Aid for it? Okay. Lydia, can you do a Band-Aid? Okay. All right, I have to do reading. I'm helping, teaching Lydia how to sew right now, and she's about to thread a needle for the first time, which is super hard. So you have to lick the end of it and get it nice and pointy. Yep. Make it pointy, and then stick it through. I know, it's super hard, but she's 13, definitely capable of doing it. Emmett's taken home ec before. I know he can sew. I just did half of a project, and I'm going to let her finish. Anyway, so it's very interesting. Yay. Okay, continuing on with the reading. Instead of condemning David for having many wives, God didn't even mention it. Furthermore, he kept heaping blessings on this polygamist and on the people over whom he ruled. It is necessary to pause here for a moment to consider another important factor in the polygamous marriages of David. When Saul was still the king of Israel, David was living polygamy. Then at the death of Saul, his wives were given to David by the Lord. Here is what the Lord said to David about this argument. In 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 8, quote, I gave thee thy master's house and thy master's wives unto thy bosom, and I gave thee the house of Israel and Judah. And if that had been too little, I would moreover have given unto thee such and such things. End quote. 2 Samuel chapter 12, verse 8. The Lord gave more wives to a man who was already a polygamist. God could have donated them separately to some of the poor souls who didn't have any, but instead, he added them all to a man who already had several wives. Also, note that if that had not been enough, God would have given him more. This is conclusive proof that God not only sanctioned plural marriage, but he regulated it by his own wisdom and direction, and favored it above monogamy. Now we're on page 109. Some of the wives of David are mentioned by name. Michal in 1 Samuel chapter 18, verse 27. Abigail, 1 Samuel chapter 25, verse 42. Abinoam, 1 Samuel chapter 25, verse 43. Maacah, 1 Chronicles chapter 3, verse 2. Haggith, 1 Chronicles chapter 3, verse 2. Abital, 1 Chronicles chapter 3, verse 3. Eglah, 1 Chronicles chapter 3, verse 3, and Bathsheba, 1 Chronicles chapter 3, verse 5. These women were acknowledged as wives and listed as such in the scriptures. Furthermore, their children were accepted as legitimate and listed in the recognized genealogies of the Israelites. This is another convincing proof that polygamy was accepted to the Lord and by the people. Notice that in a few short sentences, the sons and wives of David were accurately recorded in this genealogical record. In 2 Samuel chapter 3, verse 2 through 5, quote, "And unto David were sons born in Hebron, and his firstborn was Amnon, of Abinoam, the Jezreelites, and his second Shelah of Abigail, the wife of Nabal, the Carmelite, and the third Absalom, the son of Maachah, the daughter of Talmi, king of Geshur, and the fourth Adonijah, son of Haggith, and the fifth Shephatiah, the son of Abital, and the sixth Ithream by Eglah, David's wife. These were born to David in Hebron." End quote from 2 Samuel chapter 3, verse 2 through 5. And now we're on page 110. And I'm just going to say, this is the kind of stuff that I surely thought that this was going to lead off with, because that is some pretty solid evidence there. You know, if you're being literal and you're looking at this and thinking, why would God give wives to somebody who already had wives if God was so against them having more wives? And I know that that is a different era. That was a different time, and it was widely lived. You know, polygamy was widely lived, so it was seen as more normalized than it is now. But, you know, God's ways really aren't man's ways. And so whether or not we live polygamy now or they lived it back then, God does his thing irregardless. So, I mean, that's all I'm saying. Did you have something to say?
Yeah. Well, it was a mercy to women, too, because, like, if a woman could be in a family that was stable, there was no welfare back then. I mean, you could hire yourself off to be a servant, basically, and be taken care of and whatever, but you were not part of the family. But in order to be part of a family, you could join a family and be a wife to a husband who was righteous and who was wealthy, at least wealthy enough to have more than one wife. And like part of the laws of plural marriage in the Torah were that you had to take care of the wife that you took and provide for their clothing, their food. You had to provide for their children. You had to provide for their emotional and sexual needs. It wasn't just like some carnal bunch of people get together like you see in like some of these stupid shows like Finding or Seeking Sister Wife, where you had that, well, I guess I shouldn't get into it too much, but you do have a wicked way to live polygamy, but there's also a righteous way, which is a Torah observant way to live it. And if God thought polygamy was such an abomination, he wouldn't have given these wives David. Oh, by the way, it's not Michael or Michael, it's Michal with us. I don't know if you're listening to me. Kim. Burley.
Sorry. Yep.
Kimberly.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes. Yes. Could you hear me? I don't even know. Like, are you listening? Or could anybody hear me?
Yes, I'm trying to help Lydia in between with the sewing project.
Oh, okay.
So she was just wondering how to start. Can you send me that water really quick?
Well, I am glad that she is figuring out how to sew. I hope that she learns how to use that sewing machine, and maybe she could sew my $800 coat that I got.
We can do that. There's a certain attachment that needs to go to the end of it so that it doesn't get all caught up in it.
I don't buy $800 coats for fashion, just for the audience. When I was in the oil field like 10 years ago, out south of Roosevelt in Vernal, Utah, 40 below zero, like not including the wind chill. Like it got down to 40 below, and I was about to die. Anyways, but back then I was making like $10,000 a month. So I called up. I got a hold. Well, I worked for Anadarko, one of the people that I leased to, or one of the companies I leased to for the emergency work, whatever. And so I called. I got the number from them to the Anadarko office up on the North Slope in Prudhoe Bay up in Alaska. And I called them and I said, "What coat do you guys use up there?" And they gave me a number to a company, and I called them. And the coats were like, it was $900 and something with tax, $800 plus tax, whatever. Anyway, but they were fire resistant because you have to have certain kinds of clothes in the oil field. But it was like the coat that they used up there. So since I was making $10,000 a month, it wasn't a big deal to drop $800 or $900 onto a coat that's like way Arctic. It's like a big blanket. Have you ever worn my coat, Kim?
Yeah, you don't remember? I stuck it on over my other coat because I was so cold.
Oh, yeah. It's kind of cool because it has the cuffs on the sleeves, but then it has the sleeves that go down over the gloves, like way over the gloves. So you can hide your hands from the elements. Yeah, so my hands weren't freezing. Yeah. Yeah. And even though you have your gloves on, and then it's got like a huge hood that goes over the top, and it used to have Arctic fox like fur or something, which I don't have it anymore. But the hard hat goes I don't know. I think it's in the hood goes over the hard hat, so you can wear your hard hat underneath your coat. So I use it every night when I'm fueling because it is nice and toasty and warm. And I can't have it on for too long or I start to get sweaty because, it's like it might be down to 10 degrees sometimes here. Sometimes, it's starting to warm up. So, like in the morning, it might be the mid-20s. But this coat, it's nice.
Arius, no.
Anyway.
Oh, sorry. No, he's got scissors.
So anyway, the reason I said that, and I know this is stupid, but some of my safety cuffs, reflective, whatever on the coat, they're starting to come off, and I just noticed it today. So
that's like a hand. That can be done by hand. It's not very hard to fix that. I saw what you're talking about too. So right now is a good time to give out the call-out number because there's 5 more pages left, a.k.a. like 10 seconds for me. So it's not going to take me that much longer to finish this chapter.
I love it when you read. I hate listening to myself read. I hate my voice. I try to breathe so that I can talk slower because I feel like sometimes people are like, holy cow, can't understand what she's saying. But I mean, I do articulate, and they could always just slow down the recording, right?
I slow down for when I'm reading. Sort of.
Well, okay. Well, I'm going to have to stop at Miller's because my stomach is killing me. So
Okay.
I will just mute myself.
Okay, do you want to get in the call-in number? Because, like I said, I'm going to be done in just a minute with this.
Yeah, it's 917-889-8827. That's for any questions about restoration theology, Christianity, Mormonism, or Judaism. And I'll give the best answer that I can on whatever it is. But I don't know all things, of course. But I have spent the last 20-something years in a semi-truck, and I use the time to listen and to, when I was like an over-the-road guy, I would read a lot of stuff, and I would read it on the audio cassette, and then I would listen to it while I drive, and that's, part of the reason I do things the way I do things with this program is because I am studying and just sharing my study time with the world, basically. So I have gone in depth in many different topics, and also taken college courses on things and tried to learn and grow. And then God's given me a ton of revelations and visions about different topics He wants me to understand and know about. So, so I make myself available for people who have questions, or maybe if people have statements or comments they want to share with me things, that's fine too. So anyway.
Yep, so 917-889-8827.
Yeah.
And
I will mute myself.
Okay. And I'll continue on page 110. But of course the number of wives of David does not stop here. We read that David, you are going to have to mute that. That is so loud.
What's loud?
Yep, you're loud. You're going to have to mute it.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's okay. But of course, the number of wives of David does not stop here. We read that David took him more concubines and wives out of Jerusalem after he was come from Hebron. That's in 2 Samuel chapter 5, verse 13. What a polygamist. With all this constant addition of wives and concubines, God made no rebuke, showed no disfavor, neither did he cause David any affliction for so doing. How could anyone say that God did not approve of David's polygamy? The number of David's wives and concubines must have grown to quite a number during his years as king. In one verse of the Bible, there is a little hint to the great number there must have been. And this is 2 Samuel chapter 15, verse 16. And the king David went forth, all his household after him, and the king left 10 women, which were concubines, to keep the house. 2 Samuel chapter 15, verse 16. King David took his household with him on a journey, but left 10 of his concubines to take care of the house while they were away. It appears that all of his household represented a majority of his wives, and the 10 he left behind were a minority. Certainly must have had a big household if it takes 10 women to take care of it while his family, or most of it, are away. Many inspired and beautiful psalms were written by David. Christians everywhere are probably more acquainted with the writings of this polygamist than any other writer in the Bible. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. It's quoted by young and old. Those who have studied the written word of God the most probably appreciate quotations like, the heavens declare the glory of God. Some of the wisest and most inspirational words in Scripture fell from the mouth and pen of this polygamist. David's relationship with Bathsheba will be discussed in the following chapter. However, there is one last story about David and his polygamy that occurred near the end of his life. When King David was old and stricken in years, he had trouble getting warm. So they looked for a young virgin who was very fair to look upon. After a long search throughout all the coasts of Israel, they found Abishag, a Shunammite, and brought her into the king so that she might lie in thy bosom, that my lord the king may get heat. She cherished the king and ministered to him, but the king knew her not. It was evident his days were nearly over. Amidst all that, the explicit confessions he made in the most solemn hours of his repentance, he does not once bewail the polygamy he lived in. Nay, almost the last act of his life was an act of polygamy. In taking Abishag, the Shunammite, to lie in his bosom, his wife Bathsheba being then living, for though it be said, 1 Kings chapter 1, verse 4, that he knew her not, yet it plainly appears by what Solomon said in 1 Kings 2, chapter 2, verse 22 and 23, that she was so betrothed or espoused to David as to be looked upon as his wife. Philip Sora, page 170. According to historian Josephus, David was 70 years old when he was buried in the city of David, commonly known as Jerusalem, and he died in a good old age, full of days, riches, and honor. That is 1 Chronicles chapter 29, verse 28. And now we're on page 112. Thus it is in the life of David that we have one of the clearest expressions of God's attitude towards and adultery. Consider these corroborative events. Number one, God never personally rebuked David for living polygamy, neither did any of the prophets condemn him for taking many women for wives. His living with several wives for 45 years was never denounced nor disproved. The scriptures tell us in 1 Kings chapter 15, verse 5, because David did that which was right in the eyes of the Lord and turned not aside from anything that he commanded him all the days of his life, save only the matter of Uriah the Hittite. That is 1 Kings chapter 15, verse 5. Number two, the only mortal sin attributed to David was his adultery with Uriah's wife, which means that he was not condemned for his polygamy. To illustrate, God said to Jeroboam in 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 38, and it shall be that if thou wilt hearken unto all that I command thee, and wilt walk in my ways, and do that is right in my sight, to keep my statutes and my commandments, as David my servant did, that I will be with thee. End quote from 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 38. Number three, when David committed a sexual act with Bathsheba, God sent a prophet to rebuke him for it. But during the 45 years David lived with many women in polygamy, no one ever made a whisper against him for that. Number four, if polygamy is wrong, why didn't God pick out monogamists, who were more common, to rule over Israel instead of Saul, David, and Solomon, who were polygamists? If the leaders of Israel were polygamists, wouldn't God realize that it would have a tendency to influence others to follow their example? Number five, God continually told David where his enemies were, what they were doing, where to meet them in battle, etc. Why didn't he notice all those women that were living in David's house if they were doing something wrong? Number six, when Saul made an illegal burnt offering and suffered such a terrible fate for doing it, why didn't God punish him or David for living polygamy? Number seven, when David was living polygamy and running from a death warrant, why didn't God allow him to be captured and put to death if his polygamy was a sin equal to adultery? Number eight, when Saul died, why didn't God divide his wives among the single men instead of giving them all to a polygamist, thus perpetuating a polygamist with more wives? Number nine, if a bastard was not allowed to be included in the genealogy of the Israelites, how come polygamous children are always mentioned there? Number 10, before he was anointed king over Judah and Israel, yet God and the people of Israel chose him to be the king. This indicates that the laws of God and the laws of man both approved of polygamy. Number 11, David had a son born through his adulterous act, which God smote to death before he was a week old. How do we account for the children born through polygamy becoming kings, prophets, patriarchs, and the lineage through whom Jesus Christ was born? Whatever the critics may say against polygamy, they must admit that except for one sin, polygamist David was a valiant soldier and an outstanding king and a righteous man. Furthermore, he was so close to God throughout his life that God himself admitted that David was, quote, a man after God's own heart, end quote. And now we're on page 115, also chapter 11, Bathsheba the Beautiful. And that we'll be talking about, I am sure, tomorrow night. A lot of those parts, that is what I thought they would lead off on, because a lot of that stuff is, very interesting, especially the questions. Answer those questions. Why? Why was that the only thing that was pointed at as wrong? How come that baby was the only baby that was died and not or killed, by God, and not all of the children from David, from Solomon, from all of these polygamists, Abraham? Why didn't all of the babies die then? God does smite people. I thought you had something to say, Mark, so.
Can you go ahead and do a preview on the next chapter? I'm kind of occupied at the moment.
Okay. All right. Well, let me open it all back up because I had just closed it all out and was, again, trying to help Liddy with the sewing project that she is. So now we are teaching her how to tie the knot at the end when she's done with a part in a section. Make a little bump there. We don't want... Yep. There we go. Yep. Oh, okay. We're on the radio show. There you go. All right. Let me see. What is this interesting next chapter going to be? With me, I could probably do like a little precursor for the next chapter and then be done in the whole chapter in like 5 minutes. So, let's give a little prequel to what we're going to read tomorrow night. Chapter 11, Bathsheba the Beautiful. And oh, she was. Okay, so it starts off with Proverbs chapter 7, verse 24 through 26. Quote, "Hearken unto me now, therefore, O ye children, and attend the words of my mouth. Let not thine heart decline to her ways. Go not astray in her paths, for she hath cast down many wounded, yea, many strong men have been slain by her." End quote from Proverbs chapter 7, verses 24 through 26. It was springtime, and Israel was at war with the Ammonites. David should have been out in the battlefield, but he made the mistake of staying home. One day, David was taking a little stroll, and from the roof, he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. That's 2 Samuel chapter 11, verse 2. Not satisfied with just looking, he invited her up to his apartment. The woman's name was Bathsheba, and she accepted the invitation. It was a Hollywood romance, love at first sight, and it didn't stop until after it reached the bedchamber. In that fateful moment, David made a tragic mistake in his spotless character, an event that troubled him the rest of his life. Wow, that was really good precursor. Dun, dun, dun. But now we're on page 116, and if you want me to, I'm staring at this right now, and I could read this whole chapter in probably 5 minutes. So if you want me to continue with this very mysterious part of this reading.
Kim, if the next chapter is easy, I can probably finish it, especially since tomorrow. Yes, but tomorrow you will have probably going to the church thing. So, and I like to do one chapter at a time anyway.
I know, but it's so suspicious. If I was reading it in my head, I'd be done in like 2 minutes.
Uh-oh. My coworker Josh is parked next to me. I better get out of here before he sees me. Oh, too late. I guess he's parked next to me, so he already sees me. Anyway, do you have the studio open?
I don't have the studio open, and Emmett is cleaning, so he doesn't have it open either. Oh, he says he does. Sorry. Emmett, I thought you weren't listening in. He has it open.
Is there anybody in the chat room or anybody?
He's refreshing right now. If you give him just a second, he'll let you know.
Okay.
What do you think, Em? He says, I think my phone has really bad Wi-Fi in the kitchen.
Oh, that's weird. Oh, man, I got my stomach hurts.
He says, for a second there, it said, the good news, me and you are dialed into the studio. The bad news, Dad isn't. And I'm clearly listening to you talk. Okay. He says, okay, it just reloaded. Nobody is anywhere. You are not muted.
I know.
Okay, just letting you know.
Josh is giving me crap. He's all, did you stop to buy a beer?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, heck. Anyway, I'm sorry, I was distracted by my friend Josh here. So the other day, I was driving the other way, and he says, will you just give me one? So it's fun. All right.
How you make it?
Safety meeting.
They're so noisy.
I know they are. Anyway, so I was kind of distracted by Josh, and then one of the other coworkers just came out. So, I'm sorry. I don't have my noise canceling mic tonight that I usually have because I kind of wanted to try this headset that we got from my wife, and it's not the greatest. The noise canceling, not like the one that she has on. Anyway, so if nobody said anything in the chat room and nobody has called in, then, he who sees their evil cometh not unto the light. I might be a jerk for saying it, but so, there's some scriptures that talk about the Davidic servant and how a light will break forth in the darkness in the last days, and the righteous won't comprehend it. Well, I don't know. It's about the Davidic servant. And all these people are looking for the Davidic servant. I'm right there in front of their face, telling them, look, this is why I say what I say. This is who I am. This is what God told me about myself. And I can give evidence after evidence, talking about Rabbi Yitzhak's story, the Dead Sea Scrolls, go through Isaiah and talk about all these things, and talk about all the visions that God has given me and all the revelations and all this stuff. And still people will say, they'll disregard it. Just like my wife is disregarding what I'm saying. Where's the Kim? Seriously, Kim?
No.
You're not muted either.
Oh, I'm not? I was.
No. I've been
you
hearing
can hear me yelling at Emmett?
Yes, and I was trying to talking about how people how I can tell them exactly who I am, why I say what I say, talk about all the visions and all the revelations, all the things, and then I can have my wife on as somebody who gives testimony. Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you the whole time, Kevin.
Oh, well, even when I had... So I just had the mic up most of the way. I think I was trying to see where it muted. This one is the one where if you put the mic up, you can't hear, right?
Well, I don't know if it actively mutes the mic when you put it all the way up or not.
Oh.
But if you did want to mute the mic, the top button on the right side is the one that mutes you, and it will be, and when it is muted, it will be every 10 to 15 seconds or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Just to remind you.
Sorry. Yeah, even while we're doing the radio show, I still have to get the kids to do things, and I was trying to get Emmett to do some pellets, but he wasn't in here. I guess he was trying to do the garbage. What a good kid.
Yeah. So the other thing too that's interesting is okay, so God isn't going to do things exactly how you think He's going to, because this is a chess game between Satan and between the Satanists and God. And you're looking for the Davidic servant, right? Well, they're looking for the Davidic servant too. And even though they know who I claim to be, my name's not David or David. But, there was an interesting guy in Waco, Texas, who changed his name to David. We know him as David Koresh. And he proclaimed to be the Davidic servant, even though he wasn't LDS. I don't know, some people do know about these things outside of the LDS church. Anyway, but he was part of the Seventh-day Adventists. And his name was David. And they were like, oh, look, there's the Davidic servant. Let's go kill him. So, that's what happened with that. And they tried to spin it for it to be something different than it was. But one thing, though, about the Davidic servant, God can choose whoever He wants to be the Davidic servant, and if that individual doesn't do what he's supposed to do, I'm pretty sure God can call another to that position. And it's like with Joseph Smith, it didn't matter if he did what he was supposed to do or not. God told him he could reject him and call another prophet. So, but some interesting things about the Davidic servant. He will be named after his father. So people believe Joseph Smith Jr. was the Davidic servant because he was named after his father. Well, something interesting about me. Mark is my dad's name. So it's also my name. But they never used to call me that when I was a kid because my mom hated. I think she was just heartbroken over my dad. But anyway, so they called me by my middle name, which is Tyson. So that's why Kim calls me Tyson sometimes. Oh, excuse me. One interesting thing about Mark Lipton-Walter, though, it means warrior, light in the forest. And the reason why Lichtenberger is light in the forest is because my family lived in East Germany in the forest up in the mountains. And they had an inn, and they had a candle that they would put out in front of the inn, and they would light it. So people call them light in the forest. Or another name would be light in the darkness. And it's interesting because when the scriptures say a light will break forth in the darkness, kind of what my name means. It's just interesting, there's lots of little interesting things, but I don't know. Isaiah chapter 49 says, I'll lose my first children, and Ephraim, whether you like it or not, I am your father, in a way. Not your savior, but I am a father of people. I've been chosen to be the Lord's anointed and appointed, and I don't know. I feel sorry for you. I mean, I've been telling people for years. People just, I guess I don't look apart, I guess. I don't look like what you think I'm supposed to look like. I don't sound like what you think I'm supposed to sound like. I don't know. I'm in the depths, Kim. Do you have anything to say before we end the program?
Not really so much. I don't know. I don't know. I've talked about you forever. Like, we always talk about that, about you. I know that's part of your witness to let people know. And it doesn't bother me. I just am like, I don't know.
I was in the dip, so I didn't know what you were saying.
I know, you're in the dip, so you can't really. I know.
Anyway,
yeah, that headset
things,
does not cancel out very good. Mine does. But yours doesn't.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll just have to keep my headset from now on and use it instead. But, okay, so it might be a good thing that for the most part people hear, but they don't respond. That might be actually keeping me alive and not becoming like a David Koresh type of character, you know. But according to the psychic that I met before my conversion in San Francisco, he said that that he saw a vision of me, and he said that the time will come when this nation will be full of wars and riots, and that it will be too dangerous to remain in the cities, and that I would become a great religious leader. And at the time, I was a goth, and I was like, "You're nuts!" Like, oh my gosh, this guy's crazy. But I never forgot what he said. Anyway, but he saw that I would be in the top of the mountains, and I would that people would gather around me, and I would be a great religious leader to them. So I don't know. We'll see. In the highways of the top of the mountains and down into the desert places, we'll see how it all works out. So the wicked can destroy the wicked. I know exactly what God is going to call us to be. So and there will be a place to sing. So anyway, I guess I don't really have anything else to say, and I am grateful that Ogden Kraut did compile this stuff about polygamy in the Bible, seeing as how there is a division and a group, a bunch of different people breaking off, looking out about polygamy because they hate Brigham Young so much, so obviously because he practices polygamy. Polygamy is the most horrible, evil thing in the whole wide world, and you know, cried me a river, I guess. I don't know. I know what the scriptures say, and I know why God allows plural celestial healing for marriage. And whether or not I can prove anything, I don't even know what to tell you. Like, I know what God showed me, and I know that there is a precedent, and people who want to be ignorant and blind, they will never accept any other stuff. But for those of you who are wondering and you want to know, that's why we're talking about this stuff. So, and by the way, if you come into my group and you badmouth polygamy, I'm just going to kick you out of my group. I'm done playing games with people. Also, I don't know if this applies to any of you all out there, but I felt about 3 weeks ago that I needed to have my family remove their name from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because there is a curse that is coming upon the church even worse than there already has been, and that anyone whose names are tied to that church will be part of the curse. So I don't know. People need to get revelation about that for themselves. All I know is what I've been told to do with my family. So I've been telling people for years, you know, just remain in the church and try to be a light to people there. But, well, things are coming to a close with that thing. So I don't know. Anyway, I guess we can just end the program tonight. It's almost 8 o'clock anyway, so. Hello.
Okay, sounds good. Yep. Sorry, I had to, because it wasn't muting on my headset. Now when you stop, then I have to go into my phone and then unmute it from my phone. Yes, Emmett does have the studio, so he can start the music. Are you ready for him to do the music?
Okay, so,
okay.
Well, yes, everybody, thank you for listening. Take care. God bless. Goodbye. And music.
From cozy breakfast nooks to formal dining areas, Ashley has versatile dining options starting at just $499.99. And for a limited time only, you can receive a $250 mattress credit with the purchase of any 6-piece bedroom set. Plus, get 60 months special financing on select in-store purchases made with your Ashley Advantage Synchrony credit card. Shop and save today, only at Ashley. Subject to credit approval. Minimum monthly payments required. No minimum purchase required. See ashley.com for details.
Guys, did you know your testosterone level impacts your energy, libido, sleep, weight, hair loss, mood, and even ED? And right now, Revive Men's Health Salt Lake City will check your testosterone for free. They've helped thousands of men since 2011 feel and perform better. They're so confident they can help you, they even guarantee it. Schedule your free testosterone test, exam, and consultation today. Call 801-263-7777. That's 801-263-7777. Or visit ReviveMen'sHealth.com.
Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome back to Zion's Redemption Radio Network. I'm your host, Mark Lichtenwalter, and this is Fundamentally Mormon. Today we're going to be continuing on with Chapter 9 of Polygamy in the Bible. We'll be on pages 76 through 100, and we're going to be talking about the Law of Moses. So this is a pretty long chapter, and we'll probably have to do it in 2 parts, but we're going to start by listening to the reader portion of the program, which is about 50 minutes long. So, pretty long. I might interrupt in between. There's one part where it gives a ton of scriptures. I am going to skip over that, especially in the reader program part. But if you want to read it for yourself, I will post the text at Fundamentally Mormon on the Tumblr app website. So I think it's tumblr.com/Fundamentally Mormon. And then the links to reading this book or this chapter or other books will always be on the Fundamentally Mormon podcast in the description. So you can find it there pretty easy. All right, well, let's get into this. Thank you for listening.
The Law of Moses, Chapter 9 of Polygamy in the Bible, pages 76 to 100. Only be thou strong and very courageous, that thou mayst observe to do according to all the law, which Moses my servant commanded thee. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that thou mayst prosper whithersoever thou goest. Joshua 1:7. Mosaic Law. Justice. Picture of a scale and balance in one tray law for men, in the other tray law for women. The just weight is his delight. Prove. 11. I, Moses, is known as the legislator, or that lawgiver, for the house of Israel. This is no small title or honor, for he was responsible for governing 77, nearly 4 million people for 40 years. Furthermore, his laws have proved to be a system of jurisprudence that has been a fountain source of much of the world's civilization. At least the most civilized nations of the world honor the greater portion of the laws of Moses. Bible scholars and students agree to the unchangeable nature of those laws. Zone Irvin Publishing House makes this remarkable but valid statement: Moses had no successor. He was the lawgiver, and the law which was given through him was not to change with the changing generations of men. Zone Irvin's Encyclopedia of the Bible 4, 291. Spiritual laws, like mathematical or scientific laws, simply do not change. God vindicates this by saying that He changes not. God cannot give laws which are constantly changing. There is a blessing, or a result, predicated upon every law, and men cannot achieve the same result or blessing by obedience to several different sets of laws. In the Ten Commandments, far concerned with our attitude toward God, and seek still with our fellow men. Added to these basic 10 laws came further laws, statutes and judgments. The book of Leviticus means law of the priests, and the book of Deuteronomy means repetition of the law. All of these laws were given to govern men by restraining evil through every conceivable condition in life. Paul the Apostle said that the law was our schoolmaster to bring us unto Christ, Galatians 3:24, and since not many people are brought to Christ, that schoolmaster must continue in force. Also, it is only 78 reasonable that when you have learned geometry, you are not obligated to forget or discard basic mathematics. Only a fool would think that because they believed in Jesus that they are no longer obligated to obey the 10 Commandments and or any other commandment. Jesus made this very clear when he said that man shall live by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God. Matt 4:4. Nowhere did you...
That's Matthew chapter 4, verse 4.
Jesus named many laws of God that were no longer morally correct. Many of the moral laws and commandments of God included nearly every conceivable phase of marriage and or shall we say sexual rights and wrongs. Some of these were in marriage to Canaanite Jude. 7:3. Mothers to sons Lev 80.
I guess I'll just read these. But it'll be easier for me to read it with the abbreviations in the reader program. So, marriage to Canaanites was forbidden in Deuteronomy 7:3. Marriage to sons was forbidden in Leviticus 18, verse 7. Marriage to from men to daughters is forbidden in Leviticus 18, verse 7. Marriage to a man being married to his aunt is forbidden in Exodus 6:20. Also, Numbers 26, verse 59. Sisters and brothers are forbidden from marriage in Leviticus chapter 20, verses 17 through 21. Priests being married to harlots is forbidden in Leviticus 21, verse 7. Priests to divorce women, so priests cannot marry divorced women, Leviticus 21, verse 7. Captured women as wives, Numbers, and that's talked about in Numbers chapter 31, verse 17 through 18. Let's see. Women having two husbands. Alright. Women forbidden from having two husbands. Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse 22. Priests are not allowed to marry widows. Leviticus chapter 21, verse 13. Priests are not allowed to marry I don't know what this one is. It says to rape a girl. I think that I know there's punishments for that. So, anyway, that's given in Deuteronomy 22, verse 29. Marriage within the tribes. That's Exodus. The instructions for that are in Exodus chapter 34, verses 11 through 16. Military marriage exemptions, Deuteronomy 20, verse 7, and 24, verse 5. And basically what that's saying is that a young man is not required to go to war if he is newly married for 1 year, I think it is. So there's instructions on that. There's instructions on the dowries, and that's in Exodus 22, verse 16. There's instructions for the firstborn. That's in Exodus chapter 13, verse 15. Widows in a family. So that instruction is in Leviticus 22, verse 13. There's instructions for how to check the proof of virginity in Deuteronomy chapter 22, verses 13 through 21, or what to do if the woman is not a virgin. Carnal slave girls, Leviticus 19, verse 20. Privy member cut off. I don't know what that's about. That's in Deuteronomy 23, verse 1. Betrothal promises is in Deuteronomy 20, verse 7. The law of the brother-in-law, which is, I think, where the brother who is married to a woman whose wife has not had any children and the brother dies is supposed to marry the brother-in-law even if he's already married, and the children that the brother-in-law gives to the wife, or to the wife of the dead brother, are to be raised up with his dead brother's family name. So let's see here, and that if there is no brother that is willing to take on the woman, then you have a situation like with Naomi, I think it was, with Ruth, where she goes to the nearest kin. So I have COVID brain, so I'm trying to. That's a good excuse, COVID brain. I think I'll have that every time I forget from now on. It's a lingering thing, right? Anyway, family property is spoken of in Deuteronomy 21:17. Widow's welfare is spoken of in Deuteronomy 17, verse 18. Idolatry is spoken of in Leviticus chapter 20, verse 10. Also, this whole thing about adultery, what drives me nuts is trying to teach these things to a generation of Gentiles who know what in their culture adultery means, but it doesn't mean the same thing as it means in the Hebrew culture. So it has to do with married women, and I don't want to get into it too much because I've only read it a couple of times. I'm no expert in it, but I do know that adultery in our mind is not adultery in the scriptures. It's different. There's differences to it. Anyway, the law of circumcision is in Exodus chapter 12. Men's wounded stones, I don't know what that means. Deuteronomy 23, there's laws prohibiting the lying with animals, and that's in Leviticus 18. There's punishments for lying about one's virginity. Deuteronomy chapter 22. They talk about midwives in Exodus chapter 1, whoredom in Leviticus chapter 20, nakedness in Leviticus chapter 20, rape is talked about in Deuteronomy chapter 22, fornication is talked about in the same chapter, Deuteronomy chapter 22. Alright, so that's the list that I was telling you guys about, and I don't know what all of them are. I don't, but I guess that would be an interesting study for another time, because we're not talking about those things today. We're talking about polygamy in the Bible. So anyway, continuing on with the chapter.
Moses, the legislator of Israel, certainly understood all these laws. But is it possible that he did not understand, or that he forgot to give any laws pertaining to plural marriages? Absolutely not. Moses gave laws of God which govern plural marriage, and in some instances commanded it. A few, 6, will be considered on the following pages. 1. If he take him another wife. If he take him another wife, her